Hello, everyone. Emotional detachment is not a switch you flip. It's a journey you navigate. People often believe that they should be able to wake up one day and simply stop caring, stop feeling, stop remembering. But that's not how the human heart works. Detachment is not about erasing emotions, but learning how to manage them in a way that no longer drains you. It is a gradual process, one that requires patience, self-awareness, and an intentional shift in mindset. When we form emotional attachments, we don't realize how deeply intertwined they become with our thoughts, habits, and even our identity. Breaking away from that connection takes time. It's like untangling a knot. Pull too hard and it tightens, but with care and consistency, the knot loosens. The same applies to emotional detachment. The more you force yourself to just move on, the more you might feel stuck. Instead, it requires an understanding that every day you are making small but significant steps toward emotional freedom. At first, the absence of that person may feel unbearable. Your mind will seek their presence. Your heart will crave the comfort they once provided. But over time, with deliberate effort, you begin to replace old habits with new ones, shifting your focus from them to yourself. You start recognizing that your emotions are not tied to their actions, but to your own responses. And that realization is powerful. It is also important to acknowledge that detachment doesn't mean you won't feel anything at all. It means that when emotions arise, you don't allow them to control your actions. You learn to observe your feelings rather than be consumed by them. Some days will be easier than others. You may think you've moved on only to have a song, a place, or a memory pull you back momentarily. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. The key is to keep moving forward, knowing that healing is never a straight line. Emotional detachment is not about cutting people out with anger or bitterness. It's about freeing yourself from emotional dependence so that your peace and happiness are no longer dictated by someone else's presence. With time, you realize that detachment is not the absence of love, but the presence of self-respect. And when you reach that place, you don't just move on, you rise above. One of the biggest challenges in emotional detachment is acknowledging the bond you share with someone while redefining what that connection means to you. Many people believe that in order to move on, they must erase all feelings, suppress memories, or act as if the person never mattered. But true detachment is not about denial, it's about transformation. It's about recognizing that while the bond was once significant, it does not have to define your present or control your future. When we are deeply connected to someone, we often assign meaning to that relationship beyond what it actually is. We see them as the source of our happiness, our comfort, our sense of belonging. But when circumstances change, whether through a breakup, a betrayal, or simply growing apart, it becomes necessary to shift the way we view that connection. Instead of seeing it as something that holds power over us, we must begin to see it as a chapter in our story, not the entire book. Redefining the bond means changing the way you internalize its impact. It means accepting that just because something was meaningful doesn't mean it has to remain central in your life. The memories will always exist, but they no longer need to dictate your emotions. Instead of dwelling on what was lost, you start to see what was gained. Lessons learned, personal growth, and the realization that you are whole on your own. This process also involves shifting expectations. Sometimes we hold on to people emotionally because we are waiting for things to return to how they used to be. We hope for reconciliation, for understanding, for things to feel right again. But part of detaching is accepting that even if a person remains in your life, the nature of the relationship must evolve. It is no longer about what they once meant to you, but about how you choose to position them in your life now. Redefining the bond is about reclaiming your emotional independence. It allows you to honor what was without being imprisoned by it. You are not erasing the past, nor are you pretending that the connection was insignificant. Instead, you are reshaping its role in your life, ensuring that it no longer has the power to dictate your peace, your happiness, or your sense of self. Creating space for self-reflection and growth is one of the most important steps in emotional detachment. When we are emotionally attached to someone, our thoughts, decisions, and even our sense of identity often revolve around them. Detachment requires an intentional shift in focus from them to you. This shift cannot happen without first making space for it. In the beginning, this space may feel uncomfortable. When someone has occupied your emotional world for so long, their absence can feel like a void. But what seems like emptiness is actually an opportunity. It is the space where you rediscover who you are outside of that relationship. This is where self-reflection becomes essential. Instead of using this time to dwell on the past, use it to understand yourself better. Ask yourself important questions. Who am I when I'm not tied to this person? What do I truly want in life? What parts of myself have I neglected in this attachment? Self-reflection is not about assigning blame or dwelling on what went wrong. It is about gaining clarity. It helps you recognize patterns in your emotions and behavior, allowing you to break cycles that no longer serve you. It also shifts your perspective from loss to learning. You begin to see that this process, while painful, is an invitation to evolve into a stronger, more self-aware version of yourself. Growth comes when you start filling this new space with things that nurture you. It may mean picking up hobbies you once loved, deepening your spiritual life, focusing on your career, or strengthening other relationships. The goal is to invest in yourself in ways that make you feel whole again without needing anyone else to complete you. When you focus on growth, you begin to realize that the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Another crucial part of this process is learning to be comfortable with solitude. Many people fear being alone because they associate it with loneliness. But solitude is different. It is a space for self-discovery, healing, and renewal. It is in solitude that you truly begin to understand your own thoughts, desires, and strengths. Creating space for self-reflection and growth is not just about moving on from someone, it's about moving toward yourself. It's about embracing the journey of self-discovery, reclaiming your power, and recognizing that your life is still full of purpose, potential, and possibility. Establishing boundaries is a crucial step in protecting your emotional energy when detaching from someone. Emotional attachments drain us most when there are no clear limits, when we allow someone's presence, words, or actions to dictate how we feel. Without boundaries, even physical distance is not enough to create true separation. Detachment is not just about walking away, it's about defining what you will and will not allow to affect you. The first step in setting boundaries is recognizing what triggers your emotional attachment. Is it constant communication, revisiting old memories, checking their social media, engaging in conversations that leave you feeling drained or confused? Once you identify these triggers, you can begin to create distance in a way that protects your peace. Sometimes this means limiting or completely cutting off contact. Other times it means choosing not to engage in conversations that pull you back into emotional dependence. Boundaries also apply to your internal world. Often we keep people alive in our minds even when they are no longer physically present. We replay conversations, analyze past situations, and hold on to what-ifs. Emotional detachment requires an internal boundary, one that stops you from giving unnecessary mental energy to someone who is no longer meant to occupy that space. When the mind wanders back to them, consciously redirect your focus to something productive, something that adds value to your life rather than drains it. It's also important to set boundaries with others who may try to pull you back into old patterns. Friends or family who bring up the person unnecessarily, ask for updates, or encourage reconciliation may not realize they are hindering your healing. Be clear about what you are willing to discuss and what you need in order to move forward. One of the hardest but most necessary aspects of boundary setting is standing firm in your decisions. There will be moments when nostalgia makes you question whether you should reach out or when guilt tries to convince you that you are being too harsh. But protecting your emotional energy is not selfish, it is necessary. You cannot heal in the same environment that hurt you, and you cannot grow if you are constantly pulled back into the past. Establishing boundaries is an act of self-respect. It is a commitment to prioritizing your well-being over emotional attachments that no longer serve you. And when you do it consistently, you begin to regain control, not just over your emotions, but over your entire life. One of the most powerful ways to emotionally detach from someone is to shift your focus away from them and back onto yourself. When we are deeply attached, our thoughts, energy, and emotions often revolve around the other person. We analyze their words, replay past conversations, and wonder what they are thinking or doing. This mental and emotional investment keeps us stuck, preventing us from moving forward. The truth is, healing begins the moment you decide to reclaim your attention and direct it toward your own growth, happiness, and purpose. Redirecting your focus starts with self-awareness. Notice how often your mind drifts back to them. Each time it does, gently remind yourself that you are no longer responsible for their actions, emotions, or choices. The only person you can control is yourself. Instead of asking, "What are they doing?" ask, "What can I do today to make myself better?" This simple shift in thinking puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life. Another important step is replacing old habits with new, fulfilling ones. If they were once the center of your daily routine, it's time to create new rituals that serve your well-being. Invest in personal development, read books, take up a hobby, pursue a goal you've put off, engage in activities that bring you joy and challenge you to grow. The more you fill your life with things that enrich you, the less space you leave for thoughts of them. Your social environment also plays a key role in this shift. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, who remind you of your worth, and who encourage your growth. Isolation often leads to overthinking, making it easier to fall back into the cycle of attachment. Engaging in meaningful conversations, building new connections, and strengthening old friendships can help redirect your emotional energy in a healthier way. Most importantly, focus on self-love and healing. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about valuing yourself enough to prioritize your peace. Practice gratitude, affirm your self-worth, and take care of your mental and physical well-being. The more you nurture yourself, the less you will feel the need to seek fulfillment from someone else. When you shift the focus from them to you, you reclaim your power. You begin to realize that your happiness was never meant to depend on another person. It was always within you, waiting to be cultivated and embraced. One of the hardest truths to accept when emotionally detaching from someone is that closure is not something they can give you. It is something you must find within yourself. Many people spend months or even years waiting for an apology, an explanation, or a final conversation that will bring them peace. They believe that if only they could understand why things happened the way they did, they would be able to move on. But the reality is, true closure is not about what the other person says or does. It is about the decision you make to let go, regardless of whether you get the answers you seek. Closure is an internal process. It begins when you stop looking for validation outside of yourself and start trusting that you have everything you need to heal. You don't need them to acknowledge your pain for it to be real. You don't need them to explain their actions for you to move forward. You don't need their permission to free yourself from the weight of the past. The moment you decide that your healing is in your hands, you take back control of your emotions and your future. Letting go does not mean forgetting or pretending that what happened didn't matter. It means accepting that what's done is done and that no amount of overanalyzing or replaying the past will change it. It means choosing peace over resentment, understanding over bitterness, and growth over stagnation. Instead of seeking closure through someone else, you create it by reframing the experience. What did you learn from this relationship? How has it shaped you? What strengths have you gained through this process? One of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to release the need for a perfect ending. Sometimes people won't apologize. Sometimes they won't explain why they hurt you. And sometimes they won't change in the ways you had hoped. But none of that should define your ability to heal. You get to decide when the story ends in your heart. You get to decide when you no longer allow it to consume your thoughts. Closure is not given, it is created. And when you realize that you are the author of your own peace, you no longer wait for someone else to set you free. You walk away with your head held high, knowing that the most important person to find closure with is yourself. Emotional detachment is not about becoming indifferent or uncaring. It's about reclaiming your emotional freedom and prioritizing your well-being. It is a process that requires patience, self-awareness, and intentional action. By understanding that detachment takes time, acknowledging the bond while redefining it, and creating space for self-reflection, you begin to heal. Establishing boundaries protects your emotional energy, and shifting your focus back to yourself allows you to grow. Ultimately, closure is not something you wait for. It is something you create from within. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to your strength. It is a declaration that your happiness is not tied to another person, but is something you build within yourself. Trust that this journey is leading you toward greater peace, clarity, and fulfillment. You deserve to move forward with confidence and freedom. Thank you for listening, and may you find the peace you seek.